Hey, this is Elektron, and today I'm going to show you how to make some future bass in the style of Martin Garrix. And what I did here was I went ahead and I recreated the drop from one of his newest songs, and also my favorite song right now, There For You, featuring Troye Sivan. I went ahead and recreated the drop. I'm going to play it through, and then I'll show you how to make every element in this drop. So let's go ahead and do it. Alright, so let's get right down to business here. Let's go through the super saws or the pads, and then we'll hit up the sub bass line. Then we'll go through the percussion, and then we'll go through the extra things like this, and then we'll go through the kind of like more extra sounds that are in the background, some extra percussion. So, oh yeah, and of course we'll hit up that lead before we get to the extra sounds. The lead sounds like this. Alright, so we have a little bit of stuff to cover here, so let's get right down to it. So I started this drop off with those nicely mixed super saws. Now if you listen to that song, well, how about this? When I listen to this song, the super saws, the way they are mixed and the way they sound are just it's probably the most beautifully mixed sound I've ever heard in a song. The way those super saws sit in that mix. So what I made my goal today was to nail the super saws, and I got as close as I could possibly get. Now I can't say they're perfect, but I think I got pretty close. And so I got this sound. I took a regular super saw, like this, and I went ahead, reverted back to the original, and decided that I was missing some warmth. And if you don't know what warmth means, when people are talking about like a warm sound, or add warmth to this and that, whatever. What warmth means is basically low frequencies. So I needed some lower frequencies that were making a difference in that super saw sound. So I went ahead and threw in this layer. Together they sound like this. And so right there we had a good amount of power going. But then I went ahead, listened to the original again, decided I was missing one of the notes in the chords, which was this note. And so together we get this. Get that. But I was still missing some power. I was still missing high frequencies. And so anytime I'm missing high frequencies, I layer it perfectly with a high frequency sound like white noise. So I threw on this layer here. And then if I play them all together, and if I go ahead and play it without the high frequency white noise, and you can see how you were clearly missing some momentum without the white noise. So if I play it without the white noise, the super saws were sounding dull, and they were like missing a lot of power, especially in the high frequencies. So that's why I went ahead and just threw a layer of white noise following the super saws perfectly. So the white noise alone sounds like this, which is the same exact rhythm as these super saws. And I added OTT to these super saws as well, and that's what made them kind of like crunchier than normal. So let's go ahead and mute those and move on to this sub bass here. This is a pure sub bass here I made with Sylenth 1. if you're wondering what that little clicking sound is, that's a sidechain. Before I go ahead and mix, I always have a rough sounding sidechain just so I could tell where it is. But that's what that click is. And then you get that sound. Now, to make the sub bass, all you do is you initialize your Sylenth 1 interface here. So you get the default setting. Go to oscillator A1. For the wave, you want to pick a sine wave and have just one voice. Leave the retrigger on. Soften up your attack and release. And you have a perfect sub bass. That's all you need for sub bass. I went ahead and distorted it because without distortion it sounds like this. And if you don't have speakers with any subwoofer in them, you won't be able to hear that sub bass. So in order to make sure that my listeners can hear my sub bass all the time, no matter what speaker they have, you want to go ahead and turn on the distortion so you can get some higher frequencies ringing out in that sub bass. You'll get that nice tone, that nice upper tone that really thickens out a nice sub bass or 808. So together, the sub bass and the chords sounded like this. And yes, everything is sidechained to the kick. Now we're going to get to the percussion, and then we're going to get to the lead. So I went with a house kick here because after listening to the original, the kick, I actually didn't like the sound of the kick. It had like a lot of higher frequencies and didn't have much low frequencies to them. So it actually reminded me of kind of like a quick progressive house kick. And so I went with a progressive house kick with more high frequencies, more mids, and a little less low frequencies. Sound like this. There's a little bit of reverb on that by default. So I went with that house kick, and then I went with this rim shot / clap layer. I've listened to this over and over and over again. There's a nice heavy rim shot, which is this layer here. But it's layered with a really wide clap. And when I say wide, I mean it really sits in your left and your right ear. And I threw another clap on there just for some high frequencies. And the coolest part about this clap is if you listen really closely to the original, every fourth clap gets a nice big hit. So it might not be that aggressive, or with the reverb not as long, but the idea is there's a nice big hit on every 4 snare, clap, rim shot things. So that's what I did for the main percussion. Now let's go on to the leads, and then we're going to do some of the other percussion and a background shout out that's kind of going on over the duration of the drop. So let's go ahead and play the lead. Okay, so this lead is 2 vocal chops and 1 synth, and it started out like this. This lead is actually me, and it's me going like this. Ooh! And then I recorded myself doing that, slid it into the EXS24 sampler, and was able to write a nice melody that you hear in there for you. So let's go ahead and play this again. And then if we go down here, so the original is somewhere around here, this range. And then I went ahead and I layered it with an octave up. The same thing with an octave up sounds like this. And vocal chops, when you layer them an octave apart from each other, sound so perfect. Like, especially the vocal chops that are very long. So if you record yourself going ooh for like a really long time rather than just like a shout like oh, like if you take something like that, it'll eventually run out of sustain and your vocal chop won't be that fun to listen to unless you're doing like a really punchy vocal chop melody. But if you like elongate the sound and you hold your ooh for like a while, it gets really, really fun to throw into a sampler. And so together, the two octaves sound like this. And then I just threw a sine wave in there just for kind of a warmth measure. You can't really hear it, but it is there. And of course I sidechained these and added a little bit of OTT, even though the OTT wasn't necessary. Oh yeah, and I want to show you guys here the space designer that I used for this one is actually medium space reverb. It's a 2-second space reverb. And I have the same reverb on this as I do the percussion. See if we go to 22 here and we see the space reverb. And I actually added this same exact reverb to the super saws. And when you have the same reverb, it's just so much easier to manage and it gives you a much cleaner sound than adding like 15 different reverbs on top of each other. So then what I did is I added that shout out that's on every fourth snare, which is just me going hey, and then I recorded myself doing that 4 times and layered them up together and threw them on every 4th snare hit. So let's see if you can hear them. And right there, you know, even though it's not like a sound that's sticking out in front of everything, it still sounds really cool when you add those things. So go ahead and add little things like this. That's what makes everything fun. And that's what makes your song sound like a party. This song literally sounds like a party to me. I'm so obsessed with it. So then I went ahead and just added some extra percussive hits. Let's see if you can tell when these come in. And there you go, guys. That is how I recreated the drop from There For You, or at least attempted to recreate the drop from There For You. If you took any value from this video, go ahead and leave me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. You could subscribe to my channel too. I'd appreciate that as well. Until next time, my name's Alex Jerome. Stay tuned for some more awesome stuff.